I pushed through the swinging double doors of the ER, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A gurney, loaded with a screaming, blood-covered drunk, barreled toward me. I stepped sideways, my back hitting the cold plaster wall, letting them pass. The head nurse shot me a desperate look across the chaotic room. I didn't hesitate. Immediately, I snapped on a pair of blue latex gloves and rushed into the trauma bay. The attending physician was tied up with another critical arrival, but in that split second, I read the monitor's data and calmly issued a series of crucial, protocol-based preliminary instructions to the other nurses, stabilizing the patient's vitals. The drunk patient thrashed wildly. A heavy fist swung toward my face. I ducked, the air rushing past my ear, and used his momentum to strap his thick arm down with a heavy-duty restraint. The heart monitor shrieked a high-pitched warning. I kept my breathing steady. I pushed a heavy dose of sedative through his foreline. The erratic lines on the screen smoothed out. The man's head lolled to the side. Before I could exhale, the heavy VIP double doors at the far end of the hall crashed open. The sound was violent enough to silence the entire emergency room. August Chambers stormed into the bright lights. His custom Tom Ford suit was wrinkled. His tie was gone. In his arms, he carried a woman. Her face was completely hidden beneath his expensive trench coat. My stomach dropped. Cold, heavy stone settled right behind my navel. I stared at the custom platinum cufflinks glinting under the lights. I had bought him those for our 3rd anniversary. My feet cemented to the linoleum floor. I need this entire floor cleared. Now, August roared. His voice vibrated off the walls. The on-call doctors froze, intimidated by the sheer wealth and power radiating from him. No one moved. I pressed 2 fingers against the pulse point on my wrist. My heart hammered against my skin. I grabbed a plastic triage clipboard, forcing my legs to walk forward. I stopped 2 feet away from my husband. My face was a blank mask. Patient's name and symptoms, I said, my voice entirely devoid of emotion. August's head snapped up. He recognized the eyes above the surgical mask. Panic flashed in his dark pupils. His hands instinctively tightened around the woman in his arms, pulling her closer to his chest. A soft, breathy whimper escaped from beneath the trench coat. My lungs stopped working. I knew that sound. It was Allena, his cousin's fiancée. My eyes dropped to the hem of Alena's skirt hanging over August's arm. Dark, wet blood stained the expensive fabric. My medical instincts overrode the crushing weight in my chest. I need to remove the coat to assess the bleeding, I said, reaching out. August violently shoved my hand away. Shut your mouth and get a private trauma room ready, he snarled, his jaw locked. The force of his push sent me stumbling backward. My lower back slammed into the edge of the nurse's station. A sharp pain shot up my spine, but it was nothing compared to the absolute deadness spreading through my chest. 2 other nurses rushed forward with a gurney. I was forced to follow them into trauma room 1. I stood by the counter, my hands gripping the plastic clipboard. I watched August gently stroke Alena's hair as the attending physician pulled back the coat. Alena's clothes were torn. Her thighs were covered in aggressive red marks. The visual was a violent punch to my gut. The ultrasound machine hummed. Massive fluid in the abdominal cavity, the doctor said, his brow furrowed. Looks like a ruptured corpus luteum. Has she engaged in vigorous physical activity in the last few hours? Allena buried her face into August's arm, letting out a pathetic sob. August's face turned a sickly shade of gray. He twisted his platinum cufflink. Yes, he gritted out. I gripped the pen so hard my knuckles turned stark white. The tip of the pen sliced right through the triage paper. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of playing the perfect, quiet wife. It all evaporated in the sterile air of the ER. The head nurse leaned in close to me. Do you know them? She whispered. I stared at my husband holding another woman. No, I said, my voice flat. August pulled out his phone, barking orders to his assistant to prep his private helicopter. He was already trying to bury the scandal with his checkbook. Allena groaned loudly, her body twisting in pain. August kicked a red biohazard bin across the room in frustration. I calmly walked over, picked up the plastic bin, and set it upright. I pulled a critical condition consent form from my clipboard and shoved it against August's chest. Sign, I demanded. August glared at me. He hated the absolute lack of emotion in my eyes. He snatched the pen and scribbled his name. The ink bled through the paper. I ripped the copy away. I turned my back on him and walked out of the trauma room. I didn't look back. The heavy doors clicked shut behind me, cutting off the chaos. I leaned against the cool hallway wall and pulled my phone from my scrub pocket. The screen lit up with a calendar reminder. Marriage contract expiration. 3 days. I swiped the screen and pinned the notification to the top. The last shred of warmth in my body died. Ambulance sirens wailed outside. I peeled off my bloody latex gloves and dropped them into the trash. I walked into the locker room, stared at my pale face in the mirror, and took a deep breath. It was over. A dozen men in black suits swarmed the emergency department. August's private security team moved like a military unit. They violently yanked the privacy curtains shut across every glass window, blocking out the waiting room. A massive bodyguard stepped directly into my path. He reached out to snatch the triage clipboard from my hands. I took a swift step back. The bodyguard scowled and unclipped the heavy baton from his belt. Behind the counter, the head nurse let out a squeak and ducked out of sight. I didn't blink. I stared dead into the bodyguard's eyes. Under the New York State HIPAA laws, touching this medical record is a federal offense, I said, my voice sharp as glass. Try it. The trauma room door swung open. August stepped out. He waved the bodyguard away and marched toward me. His eyes were dark and stormy. The hospital director sprinted down the hallway, sweating profusely in his tailored suit. He bowed his head to August before turning a frantic glare on me. Give me the chart. Elisa, now, the director ordered. I didn't fight him. I let my finger slip from the plastic board. I watched the director hand it over like a loyal dog. August reached into his suit suit jacket. He pulled out a leather-bound checkbook and a gold fountain pen. He scribbled a number so fast the pen scratched the paper. He slammed the check down on the nurse's station counter. $100,000. August said, his voice a low, dangerous threat. Keep your mouth shut. The check slid off the slick surface and fluttered to the linoleum floor. I looked down at the paper. A bitter, mocking smile pulled at the corner of my mouth. The double doors opened again. Paramedics wheeled Allena out on a transport bed. Her face was pale, but her eyes fluttered open. Allena's gaze cut through the crowd and locked perfectly onto me. A weak, highly intentional smirk formed on Allena's lips. Bile rose in the back of my throat. I looked at Allena the same way I looked at a bag of medical waste. August immediately turned his back to me. He leaned over the transport bed, his large hand gently cupping Allena's cheek, blocking my view completely. The paramedics pushed the bed toward the VIP exit. August walked right beside it. Right before he pushed through the exit doors, August threw one last warning glare over his shoulder at me. Then, he was gone. The roar of the helicopter engines faded into the night. The ER was suffocatingly quiet. The director wiped his sweaty forehead and scurried away. Claire, a young nurse, hopped up beside me. Her eyes were wide with excitement. "Oh my God," Claire whispered. "Who was that? That girl must be his absolute soulmate. They must have been going at it so hard to end up here." I bent down. I picked up the $100,000 check, crumpling it into a tight ball in my fist. I turned to Claire. I lowered my voice, adopting a deeply serious, clinical tone. "I saw his chart." I lied smoothly. "The man suffers from severe, organic erectile dysfunction." Claire gasped, her hands flying to cover her mouth. "The injuries," I continued, my face completely deadpan, "were caused by illegal, oversized mechanical toys. He can't perform naturally." Claire's eyes nearly bulged out of her head. The romantic illusion shattered instantly, replaced by pure disgust. "EW. Gross." I patted Claire's shoulder. "Patient confidentiality. Claire, don't tell a soul." I knew Claire. Claire couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. By tomorrow morning, the rumor of August Chambers' impotence would be the absolute hottest topic of gossip circulating through every break room and nurse's station in this entire hospital. I walked into the break room. I shoved the crumpled check into the heavy-duty paper shredder. The machine whirred loudly, chewing the paper into tiny, worthless strips. I stripped off my scrubs, pulled on my tan trench coat, and pushed through the hospital doors. The freezing New York wind hit my face, and for the first time in 7 years, I felt like I could breathe. I pushed open the heavy oak doors of the Manhattan penthouse. The motion sensor lights flickered on, casting a cold, sterile glow over the massive expanse of white marble. I kicked off my heels. My bare feet hit the thick rug, but the apartment felt like an icebox. I walked straight past the massive family portrait hanging in the foyer. August had paid $500,000 for that oil painting. It was nothing but a lie on canvas. I entered the dark study. Behind the massive mahogany bookshelf, I pulled a thick encyclopedia forward. A hidden digital keypad glowed to life. I punched in a complex sequence of numbers. The heavy steel door of the wall safe clicked open. I ignored the velvet boxes of diamonds and emeralds. I reached into the very bottom and pulled out a yellow manila envelope. I slid the documents out. The bold black letters at the top read, "Prenuptial and fixed-term marriage agreement. Duration, 7 years." I flipped to the last page. My fingers traced the messy signature of the late Baron Chambers III, and right below it, August's sharp, aggressive handwriting. I walked over to the sleek printer in the corner. I hit the copy button. The green light scanned back and forth, illuminating the dark room. The machine spit out the warm pages. I stapled them together and placed the stack perfectly in the center of August's massive desk. The front door keypad beat. Heavy, rushed footsteps echoed across the marble floor. August walked into the living room, aggressively yanking his tie loose. Cloying scent of the hospital's VIP luxury candles clung to his clothes, mixing with the smell of sterile alcohol. He saw the light spilling from the study and frowned. He marched in. "You left your shift early," August snapped, his eyes full of irritation. I didn't argue. I just pushed the stapled contract across the smooth wood of the desk, stopping it right at his fingertips. August glanced down at the cover page. He rolled his eyes. "Another trust fund amendment." He let out a harsh, mocking laugh. He planted both hands on the desk, leaning over to glare down at me. "Your cold-blooded performance at the hospital tonight was just a negotiation tactic, wasn't it?" He sneered. "You want more money?" I looked up at him. My eyes were painfully clear. "I want a divorce," I said evenly. "Contract expires in 3 days." August froze for a fraction of a second. Then, he threw his head back and laughed. It was a cruel, dismissive sound. "You're pathetic," he said. "This dramatic, attention-seeking act is getting old." "Elisa." He didn't even open the document. He backhanded the stack of papers. They flew off the desk, scattering across the expensive Persian rug. "I don't have time for your desperate games," he said, turning his back on me. Before he could take 2 steps, his phone buzzed. Custom ringtone filled the room. "Allena." August answered the phone, his voice dropping into a sickeningly sweet, gentle whisper. "I'm here, baby. Does it hurt?" A frantic, breathless voice echoed faintly from the earpiece. "August, the doctor says there might be a complication. I'm so scared. Please come back." His face tightened with sheer panic. He spun around, completely ignoring the papers on the floor. He didn't even look at me. He grabbed his car keys from the side table and sprinted out of the apartment. The front door slammed shut. The sound echoed violently through the empty penthouse. I sat perfectly still in the leather chair. I looked at the scattered papers on the floor. My eyes were completely dry. I bent down and picked up the signature page. I stared at the date, and a slow, icy smile spread across my lips.